You're listening to the Fierce Fatty podcast. I am your host, Victoria Wellesby, and in today's episode, we're talking about will no one ever find me attractive because I'm fat? Let's do it.
Perfect.
You're listening to the Fierce Fatty podcast. I'm Victoria Wellesby, TEDx speaker, best-selling author, and fat activist. I have transformed my life from hating my body with desperately low self-esteem to being a courageous and confident fierce fatty who loves every inch of this jelly. Society teaches us living in a fat body is bad, but what if we spent less time, money, and energy on the pursuit of thinness and instead focused on the things that actually matter, like if pineapple on pizza should be outlawed, or if the mullet was the greatest haircut of the 20th century. So, how do you stop negative beliefs about your fat body controlling your life? It's the Fierce Fatty podcast. Let's begin. In today's episode, I'm talking about feeling unattractive because you're fat, and if it's true that it's harder to find a partner if you're fat, and whether you're destined to be single and alone forever, or even worse, destined to date someone who is a complete loser or totally unsuitable for you because they're quote unquote kind enough to overlook your fat body. But before we get into that, I want to answer a listener question. Now, if you have a question that you would like me to answer for you, then go to the show notes, fiercefatty.com/040 episode 40. Oh my God. And there's a link there so you can ask a question anonymously. You can always email me, send me a DM, whatever you want, and I'll answer it on the podcast. And also, while you're on the show notes there, a reminder to grab your Fierce Fatty Body Love Roadmap. And that is absolutely free. I've made it for you. It's amazing, and it's the roadmap of how to get from meek and mild to courageous and confident, loving your body and not having these fears of no one's ever going to love me or no one's ever going to find me attractive because of my body, because life's too short. Let's not worry about that shit, right? So go to the show notes to get that Fierce Fatty Body Love Roadmap, and if you want to ask a question, do it. So, question from Destiny, who has done exactly what I mentioned. Destiny's filled out this form. So what Destiny says is, this is Destiny's question. I live with my uncle and we are really close, but he thinks I can lose weight just by having more portion control because I eat a lot. What's something that I could say to him? Also, he's taking a different approach to get me to exercise so that I can increase my ability to walk long distances. But in the back of my mind, even though I want this, I think about how his previous conversations on weight loss, and it takes the joy out of it. How can I deal with this? So a great question from Destiny, and I picked to answer this one because a lot of people message me and say, how can I deal with family members? It's mostly family members who are like, I'm concerned for your health. I'm worried that you might spontaneously combust because you're so fat, or variations of that. And this one is kind of unique because it's got the movement in there as well. So the answer is, I wonder if you know what I'm going to say. Boundaries, oh boundaries. Yes, boundaries. Boundaries. I'm like, boundaries are the worst. Like, why do we have to try and become better human beings? Why do we have to communicate with people? Oh, it's so annoying. But boundaries really are an act of love. And so Your uncle, he thinks that you can lose weight by having portion control, aka eating less food. And well, the fact is, tell him that there has not once ever in the history of the world has a study been published to show that any method of reducing your body size through a diet works anything more than temporarily. Okay? Isn't this mind-blowing? There is not one single study ever. And considering that the diet industry is worth, what is it now, $72 billion a year, that it would be backed by science. And there's not one study to show diets work and they can reduce your body size long term. Yes, you can temporarily eat less food and temporarily become a smaller body size, but your body is so freaking smart, it's going to be like, what the fuck are you doing to me? We are starving, we are dying, you need to eat more food. And it's going to do everything it can to make sure that you hold on to the food that you're eating, that you obsess over food, that you are not able to continue on this starvation routine. And your body is then probably most likely going to go to a higher weight in response to this deprivation. So your uncle's advice of just eat less is not going to work. I think that you know that already. But this is the kind of information that you need to know in the core of you, that there's no way to really lose weight if you also want to live life. And I presume that we want to live life, right? So that's that first thing. But the exercise thing. So I totally get this. And I have been around people who have taken the joy out of movement more than a few times in my life. And I have reacted in different ways, especially when you're recovering from what a lot of people's experience is with exercise, it being this awful fit thing. And even the word exercise is horrible. And I tend to use the word movement because it takes that exercise, evilness out of it. And so there's a lot of trauma around moving your body for a lot of people, and for a lot of fat people, because we have been punished with exercise and we have been made to, all the joy is taken out of it, right? And so when you're doing something that is you're trying to have fun with it, and then someone says something, even not in the moment, like what your uncle did about losing weight, you're thinking, is he thinking in the back of his mind, oh, well, if she keeps doing this, she's going to lose weight. If she goes, this far, then maybe she will burn X amount of calories. And is the person that you're doing the exercise or the movement with thinking like that? When you're just thinking, oh, it's nice to go for a nice stroll. You don't have necessarily those disordered thoughts, and you're trying to not have those disordered thoughts. And so it can be really complicated. Now, so a couple of examples in my life. One of my friends, we built a relationship on movement. Now, we met at yoga and we struck up a friendship. And whenever we would meet, we would always meet, grab a coffee and then go for a walk. And these walks, she was in a small body, these walks started to become more disordered. Like, they started to become, oh, well, let's go out for 2 hours, like her suggesting that. Oh, well, I've been walking all day long and I could really use another walk, and I haven't walked enough today. And I could see that this walking thing wasn't coming from a place of, it's fun to walk and it's nice to have a stroll in the neighborhood, and it feels good to move our bodies a little bit, and so I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Not the whole walking thing, like I wanted to continue walking, but I didn't want to do it with her. And so I stopped doing it. And instead, I would say, let's sit down and have a coffee. Now, another example is another friend enjoying riding bikes together. And now this one friend wanted to keep going further and faster. And again, I could see it was coming from a place that wasn't joy, right? It wasn't about me losing weight. It was about them losing weight, right? And so, it wasn't projected onto me. And the last example wasn't being projected onto me either, but it began to not feel good. And so what I would do, because I still wanted to ride my bike and have fun, is I would set boundaries in my mind and be like, okay, so what do I actually want to do? Do I want to do this 3-hour bike ride, or do I want to do a 30-minute bike ride? And is that what I want? Is that where I think I might get some joy? And so, when we're in the bike ride, when I've got to a place where I'm like, yeah, I feel like this is enough and this is as much as I want to do, just doing that and just being like, that's me. That's where my, joy ends, and I've had enough, and it was good, and it's not going to be fun if I continue. It's like, imagine if someone was like, oh, I've bought you a cake, and you're like, cool, a cake, and they were like, eat the whole thing immediately. And you were like, well, it was nice before, you're trying to force me to eat everything immediately. Can I just have a slice? And so that's what I felt like. It was this pushing was someone taking something that could be joyful and could be nice and was joyful for me, and being like, do it all. And then that do it all was taking the joy out of it. And so can you set boundaries in your brain or verbally with your uncle, or not go walking with your uncle, doing it alone? So there are some options. But in regards to what to say, because that is your question, what do I say? What I would do is I would sit down with your uncle and I'd say, hey, uncle, I was wondering if you could help me with something. Your uncle would say, of course, because when people love us, of course they want to help, And it sounds like your uncle's trying to, quote unquote, fix you anyway. So I was wondering if you could help me with something. I am learning to love my fat body and unlearn diet culture. And I've discovered that when people say, fat is negative, when people say dieting will make you lose weight, when people do this, I find it triggering. I find it derails my journey. And so with that in mind, I was wondering, could you not talk about fat being a negative? Could you not talk about how I should eat less food? Could you not talk about whatever it is that you want him to not talk about? Now, he can respond in any way that he wants. He may say, yes. He may say, I have some questions about that. He may say, but I'm just worried about you. I'm just worried about your health. And this is where you back it up with your knowledge around how stigma around weight actively harms the physical and mental health of fat people and straight-sized people, anyone. And so say, yeah, I understand that you're concerned, but this is my body, and any type of shame and stigma directly hurts me and harms my mental and physical health. I hear you, I hear your concerns, and I know that you feel concerned, that you love me, but you have to let me do what I want with my body. And, he might say, no, I'm going to continue talking about diets all I want. You can't control how he responds. What you can do is then control how you respond to that. And so chances are The boundary will at some point be broken, just because, maybe this is a new thing and they're not trying to be malicious or whatever. No, I don't know. Maybe they could be trying to be malicious. And this is when you do the really important work of saying, hey, remember we had that conversation about not talking about weight? Oops, and not making it a big deal. And if they keep doing it, then taking some more actions. So, Destiny, I hope that helped. And I know a lot of people have the exact same question. And with movement, is there a way that you want to move that can be outside of something that you do with your uncle? And just stop doing that stuff with your uncle. Or say to your uncle as well, what you can say to your uncle is, hey, I know that you think that I should weigh less. And so when we go out for a walk, I feel like I might be being pressured to do it to lose weight versus pressure to do it to increase my stamina, or do it because it's just fun or whatever. And it kind of takes a bit of the joy out of it, right? And see what happens. So, boring. Communication. Oh. Why do we have to be better communicators? Oh, so annoying. So these conversations, they're difficult, right? Especially when it comes to stuff around fatness, because it's kind of like, well, everyone knows that fat people are going to die any second. Well, everyone knows that if you just eat less, then you'll lose weight. And the thing is that everyone knows that, but it's not based in reality. It's not based in science. It's not based in fact. Right? Okay. So it's kind of like, it's harder to set boundaries around this, because as well, you might be new on your journey and you might not be resolute about that. And you might be thinking, well, yeah, I could, I am unhealthy and feel unsure about how to do that. But learning more about this stuff and feeling confident in the fact that this doesn't feel good. Like, if that's the only thing you take away from it, does this make you feel good? No. No, well then the other person needs to stop doing that if it's not making you feel good. And it's not like you're asking them to do something outrageous. Just don't be a bigot, Okay, so moving on, I'm going to look at my phone for a second because I'm so bored talking to you. No, because I love doing polls on my Instagram, right? Because I love trying to understand your brain and people's brain, and how you're thinking and what you're believing and any limiting beliefs that you have, so that I can try and help you overcome them. Because I'm confident now, right? And I used to not be confident. And now that I'm confident, you kind of forget what it, the pain of it all dissolves. And the immediate feelings of, oh my gosh, I can remember, absolutely I can remember. But then sometimes, talking to you lot and really getting into it again really helps me understand where you're at currently. Anyway, and so I want to share these poll results with you, and then we're going to talk about the thingamajiggy, the loving and blah, 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 which is connected to this. Okay, so I asked the question, when it comes to loving and accepting your fat body, how anxious or scared are you of ... So when it comes to loving and accepting your fat body, how anxious or scared are you of? And so the first one, how anxious or scared are you of other people's opinions, family, friends, strangers judging you negatively? So 86% said a lot and 14% said not that much. Next question. How anxious or scared are you of the idea that if you love your fat body, then you're quote unquote giving up and super close to your life falling apart because of that? 65% said so much and 35% said not really. How anxious are you about your health failing and having to deal with quote unquote inevitable health consequences? 67 said a lot, and 33% said not that much. So how anxious are you about the idea that you are not able to be confident and will fail? 77% said so much, and 23% said not a lot. How anxious are you that you will put on weight? 81% said so scared, 19% said not scared. That you have particularly deep fat phobia and won't be able to stop your negative thoughts. And so 77% said very much, so much, and 23% said not really. The next one, that it means accepting never being loved fully by romantic partners or family, etc. So 60% said totally, and 40% said nah. Two more, the actual reality of living in a fatphobic world that hates fat people, and especially happy fat people. So how much is that causing you anxiety? 84% said so much, and 16% said not really. And another one, that you'll be destined to be single or date unsuitable people, as no one will find you attractive, or your current partner doesn't find you attractive. And 70% said so much, and 30% said nah. So I asked as well, like, is there anything that I've missed, anything that you're anxious about? And so here are a few responses. Anxious about other people's opinions, that no one will ever find me attractive because of my flabby body, having a hard time with that. My health failing, I have anxiety of body changes, whether it's shrinking or growing, that I will experience more stigma, that I'm taking the easy way out, like instead of quote unquote changing myself, that I won't ever feel that I look as good as I did when I weighed less. I'm angry about doctors not helping me, equals real issues not being treated, equals dying of quote unquote being fat. And not being seen as an attractive partner and not being loved / lovable. So a good few of those were about health and were about not being found attractive. And so I've talked about health quite a lot, and I'm not sure if I've done an episode on being attractive. I might have. We're 40 episodes in, who knows? I mean, I do keep track of it, but on the top of my head, I haven't spoken about it in a while, so obviously I need to talk about it again. So, does being fat mean that no one is going to find you attractive? Well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Well, let's look at first off, this fear. Oh my God, yes. Yes, of course. Why wouldn't you be afraid that no one isn't ever going to find you attractive? The representation of fat bodies as people that are romantic interests without being the butt of a joke or without their weight being a thing, it's not really represented, and we're told over and over again that thin bodies are the ones that are sexy, and that if you fancy a fat person, it's because you're deviant, there's something wrong with you're fetishizing them, and yeah, just fat bodies are better, right? Obviously, everything that we see is thin bodies in romantic situations. Just, oh my God. So I like, a bit of trashy TV. I've been watching Married at First Sight. Oh, if you've not watched that show, oh my gosh. Basically, people get married at first sight. The clue's in the title. So, quote unquote, experts match them up on their personality. And they literally, the bride walks down the aisle and they get legally married. And and of course, everyone is, thin. Pretty much everyone's white. I was watching the Australian version. I was like, what the fuck? There's like, what? Everyone is white. I think there was one person who was, might have been And pretty much everyone was white. Everyone was, stereotypically what we have decided is the world beautiful. And so you just don't get to see fat stories being told, right? As often. It's like 99.9%, thin stories. Anyway, so if you think that, then, well, yeah, of course, I'm not surprised. But there is another way to look at it. So let's look at the actual facts. Now, how many fat people are there in the world? Well, a lot. Are those fat people all single? No. Can you think of any fat person in your life that is in a relationship? Any fat person, or any fat person that like a celebrity that's ever been in a relationship? Yeah, yep. Many examples. So in the States, 67% of women are plus size. So 67% of women are plus size. That means that they're all single, right? Or they're all dating, people who are unsuitable and secretly think that they're disgusting. Do you think that's accurate? Probably not. Obviously, we don't know for sure. Probably not. But let's look at some other stats. So I've got some data, which is straight size data, but 25% of straight people said that they would date a fat person. Okay? 25% of straight people said that they would date a fat person, men and women. Okay? So there is 7.8 billion people on the planet. Let's round it up just to make the maths easy. 8 billion. Okay? 8 billion people. So very basic maths says that 2 billion people on the planet, regardless of their gender, would theoretically date a fat person. 2 billion people find fat people attractive. That's a lot. That is a lot. I mean, come on now. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, 2 billion, that's the world. Okay, that's the world. But what if my local area? And, not everyone in that 2 billion is going to be the right age, or they're going to be single or whatever. So let's break it down a little bit more. So I normally live in Vancouver. So in Vancouver, in Canada, the population as of 2017 is 675,000. Okay, so in Vancouver. So let's split them in half. 50% are men. This is very basic math. So 50% are men. So that means 337,000 are men in Vancouver. This is, for me, if I was going to date, because I want to, So of that 337,000 men in Vancouver, which is where I normally live, 25% of them theoretically would date a fatty. Okay, so 25% of 337 is 84,000. And so let's presume out of 84,000, 10% of those men are straight, are single, are available in my age range that what I'm looking for. So, conservative 10%. That means that in my local area, there are 8,442 men that in theory would love a date with me. 8,442 men. So that is a lot of dick. A lot of dick. I mean, I love me some dick, but I'm not sure I'm able to get through 8,000 of them in the next year. I mean, I'll give it a go, really. But that's a lot of choice. It can feel like there's 8, when you're on the dating apps and you're just like, oh, for fuck's sake. And in reality, this is really crude math and not taking into different gender identities and different situations and all that type of stuff. But what I'm trying to illustrate is that theoretically, statistically, you've got a lot of choice, and you could be living in a small area. So currently, I am in Ireland, in a rural place. The population is a few hundred. So right now, I probably couldn't go into the local town and find someone to have sex with? Well, probably could. There'll be some old farmers that would want to have a go, but that I would want to have sex with. So in that instance, I would have to broaden my search. And so when I've been on the dating apps in Ireland, I've been broadening my search to about 4 hours in my local area, because I know that I have to expand that because statistics, right? So is it statistically true that no one wants to date you because you're fat? No. The answer is no. Very clearly no. That's not true. And you could say, well, I'm really ugly, but I am a super fat person, but I have other marginalized identities. And yes, that will make it harder. Absolutely. But out of 8 billion people, you think that there's not a single one? 8 billion is like a lot. That's like a lot. There's a lot of people. So it's just not true that no one wants to date you. And I know that might be hyperbole when it says no one wants to date me, because you might be thinking, well, I know people do want to date me, but they're all losers, or they're all whatever. But there are also lots of incredible people that want to date you who are good. They'll be excellent partners, and they're not looking at your body as like it's something negative or bad. So yes, I just want to acknowledge, yes, there are more people that would want to date you if you were thin. Dating would be so much easier if you had a smaller body. Dating would be so much easier if you had all of these things about you that you can't change, that I can't change, right? If I would happen to be a millionaire, then dating would probably be easier. Or if I happened to look like a model, then dating would be easier, right? But these things we can't change. So, recognizing that, yes, there are people that don't want to date you, but do you want to date them? Here's what I mean. Do you want to date them? Do you want to date someone who is like, fatty, look at their body, they're fat? Or even someone's just like, nah, I'm just not interested in fat people. No, you do not. No, thank you. Not for me anyway. I don't want to date someone who is about any identity. I want to date someone who is emotionally mature and understands that human bodies come in all sorts of shapes and forms and expressions, etc., right? And so imagine if you were thin. Imagine if you magically got that body where, every person on the internet would be like, oh my God, I want to date with you. Imagine you could just date theoretically anyone, okay? And you started dating someone. Imagine if you then put on weight and then discovered that they were a raging fatphobe. That would fucking suck, wouldn't it? Right? Imagine if, I don't know, something happened in your life and your body changed and they were like, oh God, didn't know that your body could change. No, thank you. I'm out of here. Like, do you want to be with someone like that? Do you want to be with a bigot? Probably not, right? So the way that I see it is that my body is a bigot detector. It's like a screening mechanism. So when I'm on the dating apps or wherever, if someone looks at my body and says, ooh, or no thanks, great. I'm so pleased that they were able to reject me before we got into a relationship and then I found out they were a bigot. So I'm thankful that my body can screen out bigots in some ways, right? I might end up with someone who's bigoted in another way. Someone might see my white skin and be like, oh yeah, I'm a closet racist, and then date me. And then, I found out they're a racist afterwards and I'll be like, oh, for fuck's sake, But my body, I'm able to screen out people who are size bigots, right? And thin people don't have that. They don't have that. So, the poor straight size people are going out and they're dating people who are bigots and they don't even realize. And it only happens, if they happen to put on weight, that they realize and they're like, oh shit, I'm dating someone who only wants to be with me because of my body size, which is really fucking weird. And by the way, fat phobia is not a sexual preference. bigotry is not a sexual preference. The same way any other form of bigotry is not a sexual preference. So we live in such a fatphobic society that it's harder to spot this, that it's problematic. You know, if someone says, oh, I'd never date a fat person, or I prefer people who are thin and athletic, that is actually super fucked up. Really, it is. And people are like, well, you know, because they're just attracted to thin people. Imagine if people said that about other marginalized identities, and they do. Like, for example, people say, oh, I would never date a trans person all the time, and that's fucked up too. Like, saying that you won't date someone because of their marginalized identity is wrong. It's wrong, right? It's wrong. And we fetishize thin bodies in our society. We really do. We fetishize them. But the moment someone says, oh yeah, I date fat people, then we're like, oh my God, they've got a thing for fatties. Maybe there's something wrong with them. Maybe they're a chubby chaser or whatever. But if someone said, I have a thing for thin bodies, you just be like, oh well, doesn't everyone? Right? We make people who are attracted to fat people into people who have, I don't know, a mental health problem or some weird kink, because being attracted to fat people is clearly like really out there, you know. It's not. I'm being sarcastic. It's not. You know, maybe people who date fat people, maybe they're just not bigots. Maybe they've worked through fatphobia. Maybe they never let society tell them who to find attractive. Maybe they are just interested in dating people of all body sizes, and they know that all bodies are cool. Like, straight size bodies are cool, fat bodies are cool, disabled bodies are cool, you know, just people are cool, and they're just not a bigot, you know. And of course there are people who fetishize fat bodies, and but you know, the amount of people who fetishize thin bodies in comparison is like, you know, 1,000,000 to 1. And we say, oh, fetishizing thin bodies is okay, but fetishizing fat bodies is not okay. And, you know, it's okay to fetishize. It's okay to fetishize, you know, as long as everyone's in agreement and there's consent, then fetishize away, you know, if you're not hurting anyone. Seriously. So with all of these confusing and harmful messages about fat bodies, then it's no wonder that we worry that no one will want to date us. And if they do, there's something wrong with them, or, you know, they're secretly hating your fat body and they're only dating you because you've got such a great personality. No. So, you know, it's no wonder. So I was at a conference recently in the last year or two, and I met someone and we had some really great discussions about fatphobia, and she was really interested in it. And a question she asked me was, so do you only date fat people then? And I'd never had that question before, and I was like, oh, well, no. I currently date all different body types. Like, it doesn't even factor into my attraction to someone. I'm really attracted to people because of their personality and who they are as a human, and then when I get that attraction, then I am then attracted to their body, and you know, whatever that body is. So I said, oh no. And then it made me think, like, in the past when I was fatphobic, who would I date? And at that time, obviously when I was fatphobic, I was, you know, 100% believed that fat bodies were not as worthy as straight size bodies. And so I would intentionally date people who were, by society standards, attractive, but had shit personalities. So I would always think, okay, I'd think they bring the looks because clearly I'm fat, so I'm hideous, and then I bring the personality because they have a shit personality. I was bringing the looks and the personality, baby. But yeah, so I wanted to do that so I could prove to the world, look, I can date a gorgeous person. So I have more value because of the person that I'm dating, which is all kinds of fucked up. I mean, no. And, you know, they were, honestly, I would date dickheads that didn't deserve to be with me and treated me really badly. But I would always be like, oh, they're so charitable for being with me, you know, because of my body. Oh, and I would think about, you know, when they would see me naked, that they would be like, oh God, disgusting. I had no evidence to support this theory, like in regards to the personal relationships, but yeah, I wouldn't want to date fat people because I felt like it would draw attention to us as a couple and people would make more judgments about me. So I wanted to be in the proximity of thinness, and so that the positive things that straight size people get would be then transferred onto me. And so I thought that if I was with a fat person, then people would be like, well, look at you two fat people, no wonder you're fat because you're both fat. Whereas if I was with someone who was straight sized, I could float under the radar and maybe people would not notice that I was fat. That was my thinking. Now, I know a lot of people actually do the opposite. And so they wouldn't want to be with someone who was straight sized because they wouldn't want the difference to be obvious. But it's all, none of it is, you know, legit. Like none of it is, you know, really, it comes from a place of fear, right? And all of it, like any other preferences that I used to have, a big one would be height. Like I'm 5'7", and I would only ever want to date guys who were taller. And it wasn't because I necessarily had a preference for guys who were taller. It was because I had a deep insecurity about my height and my size, and I thought if the guy was taller, it would make me look thinner and smaller, and it would make me feel more feminine. And so that had nothing to do with the masculinity of the guy, or, you know, the fact that I was attracted to, you know, someone's height, being like, oh my God, yeah, I just, you know, someone who's six foot, oh my God, I'm just gonna, you know, have a wank over it, like, oh, their height, you know. You might do that, but, you know, that wasn't me. It was, for me, it was all, you know, deep insecurity about who I was. It was all about me. Same, I wouldn't date any guy who had any type of feminine, that I decided were feminine characteristics, like someone who didn't have very short hair, very short nails, someone who was sensitive, or, and you know, anything which is not that stereotypical hyper masculine. I'd be like, no, oh no, thank you. And it was nothing to do with what I was attracted to, and everything to do with what I was insecure about. Yeah, so interesting, right? Now, being fat positive, like I mentioned, I literally am so open to who I find attractive. I'm so open, and open on what genders I find attractive, and you know, the way bodies come in the world. It's not about that anymore for me. And that feels like freedom. For me, really, it feels like freedom, because I'm not so in my head about my own body and what it means to other people. Like, yeah, other people are going to judge my body and they're going to judge other fat people's body, but that's their problem, right? They're missing out, you know? Imagine all of the great people that I would have missed out on before because I was like, no. Their hair is like 3 inches long. Disgusting. Oh, I wouldn't date someone like that. Ooh, gross. You know, and they could have been a great person. And that was my loss, you know. It wasn't their loss. They could have dated someone who was a knob if they dated me, because I was a knob at the time, and probably still am a knob in lots of ways. So, in conclusion, is it true that no one will date you because you're fat? No, no, not true. Is it harder in the romantic world? Yes, absolutely, it's harder. Is the fact that you get to screen bigots out because of the size of your body or the way that your body, you express yourself with your body, is that something that straight-sized people don't have the luck to have? Yeah, straight-sized people don't get that. We have a superpower with our fat bodies. We are bigot screeners. We're able to screen out the size bigots. And if you have any other identities, you're able to screen out, other bigots just with your body without even saying a word. It's a magic trick, right? So, there's positives to it, and also acknowledging, yes, it's hard, and yes, it's difficult because you're constantly being reminded that your body is not okay. And so even if you're in a relationship and your partner is like, you're fucking gorgeous, you can hear those words of you're fucking gorgeous and be like, oh, they're just saying it to be nice. And that's because of the fatphobic society we live in, and the, still believing those things that your body isn't good enough because society says. And where did this preference come from? It came from racism. It came from white supremacy. It came from oppressive religious attitudes. It came from people wanting to make money from your body. It came from patriarchy. It came from transphobia. It came from all of these systems that you don't want to buy into, that we don't want to buy into. And so if you are genuinely feeling like thin bodies are better, you're agreeing with oppressive ideologies. It's like going onto Donald Trump's Twitter account and him saying his normal bigoted stuff and you liking the thing, you liking his thing or retweeting it. By continually having these thoughts that your body is not okay, you're basically retweeting Trump tweets. That's what you're doing. That is what you're doing. But these tweets, they're invisible, right? These tweets that you're supporting, or these ideologies, they're invisible. And, it's not on the internet where you're forwarding, or resharing this tweet, but you're resharing these ideas by letting them play out in your brain and resharing them when you have your own preferences that might be not cool. And you're resharing them when you, voice them to other people, or say, oh, maybe if I lost weight, then I'd get more boyfriends, or whatever it is. And let's just stop. Let's just work on why we believe these things and stop playing into the idea that it is a fact that thin bodies are better. It's not. It's an opinion that came from someone just like Donald Trump. And fuck that. We don't want to support that, right? And another thing that I've totally forgot that haven't touched on is we're also buying into the idea that being attractive is something that is valuable. And it's not, right? Like, in regards to our worth as human beings, we are worthy whether we are quote unquote attractive or not. We are worthy if we are, identify as the ugliest motherfucker on the planet. You are still worthy, I am still worthy whether some guy, some random person on the street is like, oh, she's ugly. And I'm still worthy if someone is like, she's the most sexy thing that I've ever seen in my life. It has nothing to do with my value as a human being. And this desire to be seen as attractive is also playing into these ideas. And we just don't need to worry about it. Like, who cares if you are unattractive? Like, if you've decided, yeah, I'm unattractive, like, what is attractiveness? It's just so complicated. And because I see a lot of times people will say, oh, well, confidence is the sexiest thing people can wear, a woman can wear. And I'm just like, yeah, confidence is sexy, but we're still pandering to other people, you know, by saying confidence is sexy. Who the fuck cares if other people think that you're sexy? If you feel sexy, great. If you don't feel sexy, that's fine. Like if that's your thing, like if you're asexual, cool, whatever. But make it about you and not how others are perceiving you. Like a lot of people want to become confident so that they can be sexy. They know that it can't change their size, but they're like, if I'm confident, then I will be sexy, and that is problematic. So how about just feeling confident just because it feels good, or you know, you're able to relate to your body better, and maybe, you know, you'll feel sexy yourself. But fuck that, like doing shit for other people all the time so that they can consume you. Like you're not an object. You're you and you're fabulous, right? Hey, so I'm wearing this t-shirt. It says nothing but blue skies, and I love this t-shirt. And the quote, nothing but blue skies, is this idea that even if it's a rainy day, so I'm looking out from my office window today, it's really foggy and rainy, and we're in the middle of summer, but I'm in Ireland, so what do you expect? We had our one day of sun, so we're done for the season. Anyway, so it's rainy and foggy. But if I got in an aeroplane or in a, you know, rocket or whatever, and I went above the clouds, up there would be blue sky. And so I really like this phrase, nothing but blue sky, or another version of it is blue sky ahead, blue sky above. And it's saying that even if it's a really shit day, the blue sky is always there, but it's just like temporarily the clouds are covering it. And so I like wearing this t-shirt because if I ever feel down, then I can be like, you know, things will change. It will get better. There is always hope. And there's always blue sky up there somewhere, and it might be really difficult to get there. It might be ages before you get there. You might happen tomorrow that the sun is shining, but there is always that blue sky there, that hope there for you. Yeah. So if you want to watch, you can watch me doing these podcast recordings over YouTube, and you can see my face and see my t-shirt while I'm doing it. And if you notice in the background, if you're on YouTube, a beautiful cross stitch that I did. I'm going to share a picture on Instagram. And the cross stitch is the words fuck with leopard print. It's pretty good. Took me like 100 hours to do it. A regular cross stitcher would have been like, that would take me 2 hours. Anyway, so if you do want to watch the video, then videos for all of the podcasts are on the YouTubes. And a reminder to go to the show notes, fiercevalley.com/040 for episode 40, or they will be in your show notes, the thingy on your phone. Oh my God, words are hard. And to get that body love roadmap, and so inside the roadmap you get the 3 easy steps to follow to increase your body confidence. The 3 massive mistakes that everyone makes when it comes to learning to love their body and how you can avoid them. And an invitation to join my Fierce Valley Friends community. And you're going to get body love trainings to your inbox. Straight from my heart to yours. So... And how much is that, you say, Victoria? How much is that? It's free. It's free for you. Okay? So go check it out. And any questions, go there. Still, if you want to leave a review, a nice, juicy 5-star review, take a screenshot of that. Send it to me and I'll send you a free copy of my best-selling book, a digital and audio version. So, okay. Thank you for hanging out with me today. It's been amazing. Can you tell my voice is starting to go? Yeah, so it's time for me to go. So I will bid you adieu and say, in a while, alligator, see you later, crocodile, have a wonderful day, fatty. Okay, bye.